everyone. I'm Darian Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates Season 6. As we dig deeper into the life of a contrologist, this season's guest list shares what the Pilates methodology can offer to anyone who desires health and wellness. On this show, we'll explore, seek, and investigate what's possible when we incorporate contrology into our lives. How does this mission statement sound? We aim to build and grow communication, opportunity, and support through continued education, business resources, and industry talks. It almost sounds like a Fortune 500 company, but it's not. It's the growing influence of the Pilates Global Organization, co-founded by my guest today, Adrianne Yurgosky. Adrianne also helped to form the Global Pilates Association, with both of these entities having a sole purpose to bring Pilates leaders, teachers, and the various approaches of Joe's method under one gigantic umbrella. Hello, Adrianne. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
That is quite a lofty endeavor.
Yes, it is.
What is the main purpose of the Global Pilates Organization and also the Global Pilates Association?
So our main purpose is to create business, ethical, and educational standards, and we also want to fund Pilates research. So we have two. We have the organization and the association because one's a nonprofit and one's a for-profit. They have very different features that they can provide for the Pilates community. And with that, so with the association being a nonprofit, you can only give 10% of your proceeds towards lobbying, which is what we would need to do in order to solidify these standards. But with a for-profit, you can give 100% of your proceeds. So therefore, we would be able to fund the Pilates community faster and be able to provide what's necessary for the community.
Will you say more about the lobbying experience, or what does that even look like?
Absolutely. So in order to create these standards, we want to put them into legislation. And we already have written legislation for the business and ethical standards. But the education piece is a little bit more complicated because we have to submit that to New York State as we're lobbying state by state. And then they will come back to us with what they want changed or modified. And we have to be able to submit that paperwork back to them depending on what their demands are. So in order to do this process, we have to hire lawyers and then lobby in order to get this into actual legislation, which will take some time and, of course, money.
Is this the first time this amount of energy has been given towards the idea of bringing Pilates to Washington?
Honestly, no. It's not the first time that it's been spoken about, but I think it's the first time that we actually have more momentum in order to proceed further. I guess it was spoken about many years ago, but nothing ever occurred of it because it is quite a lengthy process and also an expensive process. So you really have to have someone who's totally engaged in the Pilates community, who's willing to go that extra mile for that long, basically marathon run in order to have it happen. So I did find lawyers already. The beautiful thing about that, actually, and I don't think I mentioned this in our pre-interview, but the lawyer's wife already does classical Pilates. And she is actually in Albany. So it doesn't have to be in Washington. It's in Albany. And so she 100% was like, say no more. I already know what you have to do. I'm so excited. And it was just so uncanny that I found like her husband happened to pick up the phone and he never does. And then she happens to do classical Pilates. So it was almost that perfect match right from the get-go.
That's kismet right there.
Yes.
Why did you feel the need that the Pilates industry needs these two companies? Why did you think that you have what it takes?
So I guess I should start from 2020 when the organization was started, really needed more support within the community. I currently own 2 studios in New York City, and I didn't feel like I had the full support to what I needed to do for the studios, how to get funding, how do I survive? We were closed for so long. And that's really when it came about. So some of you might know Juan Estrada. He really is more of that kind of educational piece. He started connecting with different instructors around the world. And we started a Joe's Original Mat that we would do every single week. And it was so nice to connect with people all over who were cooped up into their homes or apartments. And we could just be with the practice and the original practice. And it made instructors go back to Joe's book and reread everything that he originally started. And there were little nuanced things that different people would teach, or they say, oh, I know it wasn't in the book, but we're going to do it this way. And the joy of watching an instructor teach virtually and go back to the original work and get excited about Pilates again, especially when they're cooped up and can't be in a studio, was just so heartwarming. And then we all just wanted to chat afterward. This is what I'm going through. What do you think about this? How can we get more clients to feel comfortable virtually? How can we be inspired by the mat work? Since that's mostly what we had during that time. And it grew from there. It was just like we wanted to build with people all over the world over this amazing method that Joseph Pilates created. And I think that was the beautiful thing about the organization, how organically it started. And then unfortunately, like I mentioned, most of us didn't feel like we had as much support. So we thought, well, we need to continue to outreach this, do more of a grassroots organization to be able to sustain long term and truly support the community for what it needs.
Can you define support?
Yes, because support does mean a lot of different things to different people. The timeline for us is because it's more expensive and timely, I guess it's for the long haul. We have to start support by actually creating the standards first. So that does take precedent. And then we've also created already the start of a research team to be able to provide funding for research to be done with the use of Pilates equipment with Pilates, because that has not been done. And so we want to be able to give more to some of those research projects, which are quite expensive, and you can lobby the
state,
or I think it's also might also be with Washington, but you can lobby to get those projects completed. So it ends up being less expensive and beneficial for everyone. So that's one of the support systems, which I know most people think like, oh, that's not too much support. But when we don't even have a definition of what Pilates truly is, we need to start creating those written aspects of it. And we have had a lot of industry talks. We try to do them once a month. For most people who know me, my phone is always open and people do call me to chat. And
where do you do them? Are this virtual?
It's all virtual, yes, because we wanted people to attend whenever they can.
How do you advertise?
We've only posted slightly on social media. And unfortunately, the timing is just so hard because people are like, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And so we haven't really formulated the best time and date. But I would love to. It'd be nice to do like every Thursday night. Yeah, just for people to be like, what are you doing? And this has been helpful. And, you know,
so
I have them now.
Let me ask you, sorry to interrupt. The idea of setting a standard or standards for contrology, do you think that that would organically evolve by all of these different teachers worldwide? Is that what you're thinking? Is that your approach by getting everybody's feedback?
I think everyone has something to offer, however they were trained and whatever type of experience they have. And the goal is to be able to combine that to provide some sort of standard, because there are so many different nuances to the way people teach and to what their thoughts are on Pilates, that we're not trying to narrow it down so hard where we're like, this is right and this is wrong. But what does need to be narrowed down are specific safety standards, which we've just seen in Australia, for example, that people aren't getting their, equipment maintained and things are breaking and people who are providing an advanced exercise in a class and the client falls forward into the well or off the reformer. Those are the types of things that now are happening more and more, that we do need to provide a specific standard for those types of protocols.
I think during our pre-interview, I emphasized how important it was when I went through Romana's program. The very first class was all about safety. Safety was the thread throughout. Safety was everything, obviously, because we're dealing with the weight of the springs and the unpredictability of somebody's body, not necessarily knowing where they are at every single moment. I saw something online. She is maybe fourth generation. So now we're talking, as the generations come up, things have been lost. So the idea of standards is super important.
Yeah.
But she was teaching someone on the electric chair, not an easy exercise. Her foot was not on the pedal. Her foot was not on the pedal, and the student's hands weren't on the top rung.
Oh, when I went through the program with Bob, it was automatic failure. You don't have your foot on that high chair, failure. But now I'm seeing, when I interview instructors, I had a girl put my feet in the wooden handles for short spine, not looping them, just in the wooden handles. And I remember this was years ago when I was back up in Rochester. She had me put my feet in the wooden handles for long spine. And I looked at the instructor, and she was the owner of the studio. And I looked at her and she goes, I know, I'm just lazy. And I thought, what? So, this has been a long time. There's always going to be people who, think, oh, it's no big deal. But it does become a big deal because it's just that one time it needs to happen. It's just that slight slip. It's just, I was in the room when an incident happened. They were doing, and I think it's more the shari, or some people call it the parakeet or something. And she was doing it in a group class. The client was maybe practicing Pilates for 13 years, and her foot was slipping. And instead of letting go, she sat up to grab it, slashed her entire front of her face, her eye, and her eyebrow, and had to be sent to the hospital. And so you never know when something's going to happen, and it is always better to err on the side of caution. So people sometimes get a little fearful of like, oh, you're trying to create standards and have Pilates be licensed. It shouldn't be something that anyone's afraid of. If anything, it's going to protect what we have. Because having a bad reputation for Pilates and saying, oh, well, this is dangerous, or, oh, now, they're not recommending it. Doctors aren't recommending it anymore. People are telling you don't do it, is not good for anybody. And so there should be no worry about creating protocols, because honestly, so many of these protocols are just things we, one, do anyway, and two, are helpful for the student and for the instructor.
So we have safety, for sure, full on, yes. What about ethics and then business?
So I'll start with business first. Business would just be what you already carry on with your day. So during COVID, a lot of the protocols where you have to make sure you wipe down the equipment after every use. Well, most of us do that anyway. I think most people then started doing more of the rollback bars and the handles than they had prior. But for the most part, we tend to wipe everything down. We tend to be very, cleanly with that. And it's just putting it into practice, because we were grouped with large gyms, and most gyms, let's be honest, people have the responsibility themselves to wipe it down, and most don't. So we want to be able to just put that into practice, knowing who's coming in and out of the studio at what time, which most of us do, unless, I don't know, maybe there's a big group class protocol where people don't know, but I haven't seen that in any studio that I've ever been in. So those are kind of the business practices of what you'd like to see around the studio and how things are handled, which again, even the ones that we got from New York State, I would say 95% were already done by every studio. So that is just putting them into legislation. For the ethical standards, that's when I think these need to be added to the industry. Other industries have them. It's a level of professionalism. You go to a sports match and you have certain protocols that you abide by for your colleagues, for these teammates. You still say good game at the end of a game, even if you've lost or you've won. It's a certain level of respect towards your teammates. And that needs to happen across the board amongst clients and instructors. I think what's getting tricky now is a lot of social media, which I know we'll get into, but having these ethical standards of saying you cannot bully your colleague. You will lose your license if you do that. You cannot speak poorly about a colleague. If there's something going on, you need to bring it up to the board. You need to bring it up to the organization so it can be properly dealt with within the industry rather than airing any dirty laundry that's out there and allowing people to feel horrible. And it goes both ways. There's just a level of professionalism that needs to continue. And
Continue.
the example I mostly use.
I don't think it's there. I mean, individual studios, social media has changed the landscape in such unpredictable ways.
That's true. I mean, I like to think that I try to use it, and I have, friends and colleagues who do, but I think people treat it differently when it is written out and that's what they're supposed to do. And there's some sort of governing body kind of ensuring that that happens, or there are consequences. And right now, there, like you said, there are no consequences for your actions. You could do whatever you want and nothing is going to happen to you. And I don't think that that's right. If you do something poor to a colleague, they should be able to have a place to go. You need to be able to have a place to go. And there's consequences that happen. I'm not sure if I shared this story, but there was an incident on social media and both parties, the person who was bullied, she was like, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know what would support me. I don't know who to talk to about this. And then the person who did the bullying, the company they worked for, spoke with them, but there were no repercussions. I mean, they're fully teaching. It was completely inappropriate. And there should be something that does happen. So that's where ethical comes in. And I always give the example of if you're in the medical field or if you're in law, you lose your license.
Yes.
You cannot do that. And I don't see why Pilates would be any different.
What does your attorney say to that point? That Pilates would be at that level, would be considered that level of professionalism and expectation of being professional?
That's not what comes into being an issue. We can absolutely do that. What becomes an issue is how we standardize the education piece, because right now what has happened is the PMA has put us under a fitness category, and it depends on what type of category we put ourselves under. Fitness is the easiest one to be able to go into. And if we want to be more of like medical or, like an acupuncturist, that makes it much more challenging to enter. And so there are different protocols depending on what we do and how long it will take to actually get there. So that's what makes it more complicated, is the categorization than
there is
any
no
of the
category for Pilates.
There is no category. We're just lumped into fitness. And that is what the PMA did, is put us in the fitness category with their national exam.
Because it was easiest.
Because it was easiest, it would happen faster. But technically, we don't have an occupational code or a tax code. We're just lumped into that. And the exam that they put was put into fitness. So the best way to do it is try to take that exam and modify it rather than starting over. But we'll determine what happens based on how many people are willing to be able to work towards this project and work together on it rather than fighting it.
So the PMA started this process years ago, but then something fell apart and now you're picking up the baton?
Well, hopefully it depends on if they're willing, which now it's no longer the PMA. They have a different name where they have the certification. So hopefully they'll be willing to work with us to continue to move forward with the project. But if they're not willing, then we do have to start all the way over. So the goal, when I spoke with different members who had started the PMA, their goal was always to have these standards. just along the way, it didn't fully happen. And while it is, that's why I was saying in the beginning, it's a long pursuit, it's a marathon. You have to have people who are involved, who are willing to do this for years to come. And it's going to take time. But most people who know me, I'm a go-getter. I will get it done. So I have no problem being in the long haul. I have no problem continuing and pushing. Right now, it's a lot about funding, but, within, I don't know, 2 weeks, I already had lawyers. I had the codes. I knew who to contact. I'm willing to do and put all of my extra time into that. I mean, I'm not getting paid for any of this. That's not the point. The point is to really do something for the community. And I think Pilates deserves it. I mean, one of the things that we spoke about before too is that this method is just so amazing. And it needs to just...
It needs respect. It needs respect.
Have that support. It totally does. And it's a beautiful, beautiful method that has helped me so much, that's helped a lot of my colleagues so much, clients, part of my family. And I think it's just one of those beautiful things that really needs that full support and nourishing for years to come. And we need people who are like that. Now, even if some people can't, like, I'll still take any help I can get, but I'm in it for the long run.
One of the big components, though, is to find a category that, yes. Okay, so where does physical culture come in?
So physical culture is from like back in the day when they had bathhouses, and there was a lot of talk about that. And I think, gyms weren't really a thing. Everything was kind of starting. So in that sense, Pilates got grouped in with physical culture. And the only reason that I even found out about it was during COVID, is that we were also physical culture. So the story for me was, if your physical culture in New York City, if your studio was over 1,500 square feet, you had to apply for a permit. And it was $50,000 to get that permit because of like the showers. And like I said, it was more with the bathhouses. So my story with being sued and evicted during COVID, I was looking for another commercial space. And they told me that these commercial spaces are not zoned for physical culture, and I could not get a lease. And then even the places that I got that were under office are very sketchy because you could get kicked out at any moment. They don't know if it's fully legal or not legal. Technically, it's not, because we should be under the gym category, which again is more physical culture. And you have to abide by certain rules and regulations. And again, it goes back to showers and bathhouses. So at the time, Mayor de Blasio was trying to get rid of it, but I don't think anything happened of it. We didn't hear anything more. And then it kind of went away because, things progressed with COVID. But that's also been an issue. And I know I was talking about it with one of my other colleagues who started a studio a bit upstate from New York City, and she had to go through everything with her lease. And I know that there are a lot of people who are illegally in their Pilates spaces.
Do they know it?
They might not even know it, and their lawyers might not have even, but there is that kind of shift over. And even now with my studio in Queens, everything was zoned, whatever you wanted to do. And now they're rezoning. So now you're like, okay, well, you're grandfathered in, but as soon as you renew your lease, you're out. So a lot of things are changing like that. And that should also be protected, because for most of us who do Pilates, we're in a more quiet environment. So we could be in an office space. But if you're doing these major group classes and you're loud, like that was the thing my landlord said, well, we don't want you dropping weights. I said, we don't drop weights. That's not something we do. So I also think there's a component of education
100%.
that, people just don't know about.
Not at all.
Even during COVID, a lot of the officials were like, well, we're not really worried about you guys with Pilates. Like they were more after the big gyms or, people like that. So physical culture gets a little tricky. And I think some of those laws, it's really important to make sure that you are in a space that's deemed for it. And with having these standards, we would be able to put into place what type of commercial spaces we would also be able to rent.
I wonder if that would also impact insurance.
The goal is to hopefully. So if you are already abiding by standards, maybe you get a lower premium with your insurance, or they know that X amount of injuries have happened per year, which gives you an even greater discount because they're not concerned about you. Or if you have a certain square footage, things like that. Or the other big one that my husband and I spoke about was if you get your studio properly maintained every X amount of times per year, you should be able to get a lower premium on your insurance because you are trying to make sure your
Safety.
clients are safe, your equipment is safe, you're safe, your instructors, and that should provide you with some sort of deal.
Are these all points that you discuss with your attorney or will?
In terms of insurance, we haven't discussed that. One of the things that the attorneys have said is, we almost want to try to be, in a way, a subcategory of a major category so that we can reap all the benefits of that larger category. So
that sounds like lawyer talk.
One of the feedback things that some people have said, well, we'd like to take insurance. Maybe we would have more clients. It would be nice to offer the option you can take insurance or not take insurance. And the organization would be there to help set you up with all of that information or whatever you needed. And obviously it gets more complicated because we have to go state by state, but New York is really tough on their rules and regulations. So if or when it goes through with New York, it will be easier to do certain states, and certain states it will definitely be easy.
But it would be one code that would be throughout the nation then, one code for insurance, for example.
Maybe not, because each of the insurances, it's the same as if you take your insurance to another state. Sometimes they recognize it and sometimes they don't. They're starting to change some of those, but it depends. So hopefully, yes, we have a full federal tax code, but the way that you have to lobby is it will be state by state. So the insurance would normally follow that suit, which would be also state by state, unfortunately, just like the political map.
It sounds incredibly exhausting.
Yeah. It's not the necessarily easiest thing, but I think once you get in, and that's the other, I guess, challenging part, is that we have to be prepared for anything, because if they come back to us with a question, we have to answer right away. There's no time to waste, because if you do that and you're like, oh, I'll take a day or two to get back, they will take then another month to get back to you rather than a day if you're able to answer right away. So the lawyers were like, you need to have everything mapped out of what you want, and then we'll be ready to go, because otherwise they're going to come back and it will take even longer and a lot more money.
Is your organization paying the lawyer bills?
Yes, we have to. So that's what we're looking to fundraise. So if there is anybody, we need some grant writers, and we wanted to launch some memberships, but we didn't want people to feel, we want to be able to know exactly everything that we can provide back to the community in terms of that, because one of the biggest feedbacks is people feel like they pay into memberships and they get nothing out of it. And the truth is, we need those memberships to be able to fund the lobbying. So the money does go somewhere, but we need all of that to be able to fund it. So we're thinking now of different ideas of things that people can receive so that we can continue to work on getting more funding. Otherwise, we do Joseph Pilates mat classes every third Saturday of every month. They are posted now, I believe, on the website, and we have the dates for the rest of the year. And those are done virtually. And then sometimes they're in-house. So if any studio wants to host one, you can do it virtual and then have people at the studio and have them come in. They're all donation based. And then we host a conference every year in October, and all of the proceeds go directly towards lobbying. So we have a different fund that we move all of it into, and we keep that fund and trying to keep accruing as much as possible. And that's solely dedicated to lobbying.
A completely different focus, for sure, opposed to just featuring teachers and having the teachers make all the money. This is student and teacher alike are part of this conference or congress or whatever you refer to it, but all of that money goes to help fund what's needed.
Yes. And I think there's a lot of clients or students who love Pilates who would like to see that happen. I mean, I know I have a lot of clients who have gone to other studios and they're like, we thought we were going to do Pilates.
Oh,
Like, I don't
no.
know what that was. Or I was,
Oh, no.
feeling really strong, or I knew more than everybody. And, we want them to understand that we're trying to keep what we know, what knowledge we have of Joseph Pilates, and keeping his method intact. And that's not to say that there aren't variations or there's no leeway room, but we definitely need to be able to, I don't want to use the word preserve, but kind of preserve his legacy and what he meant for, instead of having these things be diluted, unfortunately, in that sense.
But specifically because there is no hub.
Yeah. And there
So
should be a place for everyone to go. I can't tell you how many people I try to educate on what Pilates even is, or they're nervous to come in. So this way would also give validation for a lot of studios so that people could understand, okay, this is what Pilates is. This is part of the history. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And this is why you love the method you love so much. And having the support from other people in the community, not just instructors or people who want to be instructors. But I think there's so many clients out there who just love Pilates, who want to partake.
and don't understand all the drama that is out there.
Well, yes. And let's try to even get a lot of the drama out of there. These are just the facts. Okay, this is what we need to do, and this is why we need to do it. There shouldn't be, in my opinion, there shouldn't be any drama around it. We're literally just trying to maintain a certain standard,
Protect
and protect that and have it benefit everyone. But sometimes people don't see it like that, but that's how it is. It is not to hinder anybody's business or have them make less money. Let's be very clear about that. And I think when people hear the word licensing too, they get very nervous. But if you are a solid teacher and doing what you're doing, there's nothing should change in that sense where, okay, you should be putting your foot on the pedal every time you're using the high chair, or you should make sure that the person's in the right type of strap so they don't fall out of it. None of those things are hindering you from being a teacher.
That is kind of bizarre, putting your feet in the wood handles. That wouldn't even feel that good unless you need a massage in your arches.
Exactly. But very scary as a client, let me tell you.
Adrianne, let me ask you, how long have you been in the Pilates industry, and who was your first teacher? How did that all come about?
So I started back in 2007, and my first instructor was actually Patricia Moya, who I don't even know if she's still teaching at all. But I worked upstairs and the Equinox was downstairs, and she said, "Oh, I'm teaching. Come take a class." And I was like, "Well, I hurt my back." She's like, "It'll be perfect for that." So I said, "Okay." And I took a class and I got hooked, and she taught at DL Fit, which I'm not sure if he's still teaching, down in Soho. And I would go from Inwood down to Soho. And for people who don't know Manhattan, it's about an hour train ride. And I would do that twice a week just to try to get in my Pilates as a poor college student, just to feel good. And I loved it. And I thought, okay, I should go through the program. So I ended up going through Power Pilates program with Bob.
Did you research, or someone suggested?
They suggested. They actually gave me 4 different names of different places. And because I was injured, they said I would probably have a better experience there because of the way that they dealt with injuries. I have to say, in that sense, maybe it was true. I don't know. I worked with Howard. He helped me. He was a chiropractor, still is a chiropractor. And it definitely helped my back a lot.
Howard's the shell.
Yeah, but I don't think, I know we kind of spoke about this in our pre-interview, like, that was the first time that I was bullied through the Pilates community, because they had a running pool that I would not graduate, that I wouldn't make it through because I wasn't a dancer, because I was so tight, I couldn't touch my toes. And I did, but I was still in college at the time. I just wanted to learn every exercise. So I was already in that, let me study mode, let me practice, let me do everything I can. And I think that really helped my experience, because I had a different outlook, and I still Your words are still in my head too, because it's definitely a different type of outlook I had on Pilates at the time. And I didn't care that I was in this pool by myself. I know we had a very tight knit group, and I loved my fellow apprentices. And they were even like fighting for me. They're like, I want you to have this and this. And I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm still going to fight through, even if some of the teachers don't necessarily think that I can.
But they treated you differently?
Yes, of course. Of course.
So they were these teachers dancers?
Yes. I didn't have the flexibility. I couldn't do a lot of the things. I couldn't put my feet on the foot bar for stomach massage. I was that tight. But I had a bulging disc, torn disc, sciatica. I ended up having major arthritis. My disc kept tearing in different spots. So every time I felt like I got better, it just tear again. So I had a lot of issues, but I kept trying. I would do whatever they asked me to do, but I couldn't do. It's like I physically couldn't do some of it. So when I couldn't put my feet on the foot bar, that's when they were like, oh, forget it. And that's how I actually formulated my relationship with Juan Estrada, who has
they
really
gave up on you. They gave up on you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
They
goodness.
didn't watch me sometimes during my sessions either. They'd just walk away.
Oh, that is so rude. Who are those people?
That's why I love Juan Estrada, because he would actually take the time, didn't get paid for it, would be like, hey, how can I help? What are you not getting? What can we work on? And he was becoming a teacher of teachers. And so we just kind of bonded. When I started my corporate job, I wasn't teaching Pilates so much anymore, just once a week. We fell, off the radar from each other. And then we got brought back after Power Pilates got sold. And then when this came about, he was like, anything you want to do to help? Like, you've just been there. Anybody who knows me, if they want to talk to me about anything, I'm always there. Whether or not I'm in the industry or I'm somewhere else or I'm traveling, whatever.
Oh, that's lovely.
I'm always there. And he was the one who really pulled me out of it. Was like, you're going to do this. You can do it. And I did.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Want to level up your teaser? When I'm not interviewing or editing, I'm helping students just like you get to the next level. If you'd like to understand the Contrology technique, come learn from me, whether online or in person. Just know I'm here and happy to help. Now, back to the interview. So, Power Pilates was sold to whom and when?
I don't remember the year. It was sold to Ali, who does not do Pilates.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not that he never did it, but he has no interest in doing it. And I really don't remember what year it was sold. I want to say maybe 2015, somewhere around there, but I could be a little off. So yeah, I don't know where they're at now. I think they're still running a training program and all of that. But, a lot of the instructors left. I mean, they did have a lot of great instructors. It was really one of the, I guess, bigger programs in that sense. And working with Bob was great, and working with Susan was great. They weren't always around because they were traveling or
Susan Moran.
Yep, Susan Moran. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I had a great experience still, even though I was not in that sense, like properly supported. I still had a great education. And the reason I would primarily say that is, one, because of Juan, and two, because of my fellow apprentices. I think they really supported me. So I knew the benefit of community. I know that you can pull it together. And I would say half of that group were not dancers either, but they were in the fitness field. So they were doing more. But we pulled it all together. We supported each other and we're like, who cares about this? We're going to get through the program. We're going to be awesome instructors. And pretty much everybody was. And
how long did it take you to go through the program?
I started in March, and I think it graduated September. So it was like 7 months, 6-7 months. Yeah.
That's not that long.
No, you had to get in all your hours. You had to do it. Now, I continued to practice. As you know, it takes time to really be an instructor. And keep in mind, I was a college student already. So it was just about getting the words out. And I'll never forget, they're like, you're going to find your voice. It'll happen. It'll happen. Saw was it for me. All of a sudden I taught Saw. They're like, there it is. And I was like, and that's when I knew it had shifted. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to teach like they're asking me to.
Oh, can you say a little bit more about finding your voice? That's really interesting.
When you start becoming instructor, you're very wordy. You don't know how to say things. And in Power Pilates, I felt like it was really broken down where you're like, here's the next step. You inhale, you twist, you exhale, you twist the other way, or whatever it is. It's very broken down so that you know each
Mechanical?
step. Very mechanical. And for me, my brain works better that way. I love that. And then you can add in more of the rest. But that's how I function. And so I would practice and practice, and it would just be so wordy. And then all of a sudden, I got that voice of like, lift, twist, twist further, twist further, twist further, keep reaching, keep reaching, keep reaching, hold, exhale, 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 and come up out of it. Like you had the
Rhythm.
I don't know, the dynamic and the rhythm of it, and you would feel more comfortable. Now, maybe someone who's a dancer or someone who's an actor or a singer
would already have that. They would
already have some of that, but I didn't. So for me, that was more of my voice of being like, okay, I can get into it. I can tell the person what to do and have that confidence behind it. Did I still have to work on that? Absolutely. And do I still do that now? Yes. I still get nervous with every first time client I have, even though I've been teaching since 2007. I get nervous. And I don't know why. And I know that was one of the things.
Good. It's good to be a little nervous.
Yeah.
Your senses are heightened.
It's true.
And you, right? As long as you don't put too much pressure on yourself, it's good because it keeps you very much in the moment.
Yes. And then you start to forget. You're like, okay, I'm just teaching the body in front of me.
Yes. And I would just add to that because, of course, Romana always said, teach the body in front of you. However, the body has a head, the body has a heart. So
that's true.
You want somebody to have a full, embodied, expressed experience. And so you as the teacher, and I'll probably be talking more about this at some point with teacher training, but you have to really see yourself as a conduit. So it's not about you. It's about connecting with whoever is in front of you mentally, psychologically. You have to breathe with them. You have to breathe with them so they're fully invested and they can't wait to be with you again.
Yes, that's absolutely true. There was a sign, I actually just bought it today on Amazon, and it's something I hope I don't butcher it. It's something like, be the teacher that you want to work with. And I got it because I was like, that's just needs to be a little remembrance to my instructors. Like, be that type of teacher. Who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with yourself? That was one of actually the tools we had to do in Power was you have to record yourself doing a session and then take your session.
Awesome.
And sometimes you go back and you're like, oh my God, why do I do that? I shouldn't do that anymore. Or, oh, I'm not giving enough energy with this, because you can feel it. You can absolutely feel it. And if someone wants to, be in the room present with you, or if they don't, that sometimes is the hardest thing, especially for whatever reason. A lot of people in my Queens location, they are dead-faced. They are so focused. I think it's the analytical mind, because after the session's done, they are happy. They're chatting with you. It's everything. But during the session, forget it. It's like they have their game face on and they don't change it. And it's sometimes very hard to teach because you're like, I want to connect with that person. I want to make sure they're having a good time. But sometimes that's how they learn. And you have to accept that as a teacher and say, okay, this is how they are. And I know I'm still giving them a good session. And you know that after the fact, because then they're smiling and laughing and happy with you.
For sure. I mean, to that point, you don't necessarily want to have a social hour. And there are students that probably come for that aspect and community. And even if they're doing one-on-one, you provide them something else besides educating them on this work. And maybe they don't have that kind of attention anywhere else in their life. So it's a balancing act between connecting with your student and knowing the exact moment when you can kick their butt. And they'll welcome it because they trust you.
Yes, for sure. Although I'm a little bit like that. I have a little bit of a game face. And I had one instructor who was like, it's not so serious. Like, give me a smile. And I was like, okay. But I just forget. I'm like, okay, I'm in the zone. And so, yeah, but for a lot of people, you're right. It is also a social aspect. And more so at my Upper West Side location. A lot of times people will just, chat after. They've become friends or they go out for coffee around the
For
corner
sure.
after. And that becomes their
Yes.
social hour. So it's not necessarily done in the studio. They're at least doing something active together. And then they take it outside the studio. And we've had several people like make friends during the classes and everything, which
That's beautiful.
awesome.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
everybody knows each other's names. And we have one lady, and I feel like this one to me was really important, but she was not so nice. I'll put it that way. And she even apologized to me of how mean she was to me. And I was like, listen, I'm just trying to help you. Like, I want you to feel better. Now, after her work with Pilates, because it's been maybe about 2 years, and I see her on the street, she is the happiest I have ever seen her. And I swear some of it's also just the attention of the instructor, the time she has there. She sees herself walking better, just everything. And I know there's the whole psychological aspect, but prior she had male instructors. But now she has a female instructor paying attention to her. And I swear that has been one of the biggest differences because there must have been something in her history. And to see her change and smile and laugh and be happy is just the most heartwarming thing. And she was really rough, like really rough. But she knew it and she apologized. And I said, listen, we're going to get through this. And it did take her a long time, but man, that is just
It's ironic though, because maybe that's how the teachers were with you when you were going through the program, but you flipped that around.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. Like a lot of times, and someone said this to me, there's a lot of clients who will come in and they're already in pain. And you imagine what it's like when you come in pain. You're just not yourself sometimes. You don't mean to not be happy, but you're in pain. And so the more you can alleviate that, the person's like, oh, okay. And you can change their entire demeanor. And I think we sometimes forget that is that on a human level, we're trying to help people.
Yes.
We're trying to have them feel
Preach,
better.
girl.
That's the whole point of this method.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the biggest reasons of why it's so, so important to help keep with what Joseph Pilates intended and what he wanted for his method. And there needs to be some sort of, it's like it needs to go in the Hall of Fame type deal, You want to see it just be
Shine
there so that everyone, and have more people understand why there's a reason to all the madness, why we love it so much. Why does it affect the body so well in that sense? Like, I was so tight in my shoulders the other day and I was like, oh, I should really get a massage. And I was like, I don't have time. But I did. By the time I got home, it was like 9:00, right? So I'm like, what can I do? I did Pilates. I did reformer. I felt so much better as if I had a massage. So I was like, all right, like, yeah, I'll still go get a massage because it's different. But man, it took away so much of my discomfort. And you forget sometimes of how much the method can do for you and does for your clients.
100%. Moving on, I love what you are saying. It's fantastic. Word on the street is that you've had some interesting travel Pilates stories. I thought maybe you'd like to share one or two.
So I actually have a new one that you don't know about. Or that's going to be happening. But one of the things, so I should claim her name. So Sylvia at Pilates Designs, she called me up and said, hey, we have this potential teaching gig. Would you like it? I said, sure, great. So I was able to teach the president and first lady of Gabon. And I had to go to the St. Regis and I have my little bag with me and I'm already really nervous. And I go up and I think it was 2 floors, but this one was the entire floor of the St. Regis that they had.
Is this in New York City?
In New York City, yes. They had booked it. Their dog was like running around through the corridor and it's just lined with security from the US and from Gabon. So I go in and then they have a whole hotel room just for the Pilates equipment. So I go in and I'm so, so nervous. And she was as sweet as could be. I mean, it was just so nice. And that's when I was like, teach the body in front of you. It's just a body. It's just a body. And it was so much fun. And of course, the session was 2 hours. So the pressure was on to like continue for 2 hours on a reformer. And I have my little bag, right? So I have a magic circle. And they're like, what is in there? And so they had to inspect everything. I'm like, it's just a magic circle. They're like, what is this? And so I had to explain. I was like, it's not a weapon, I swear. But it was super cute. And I went back for another day. And the next time they were in New York, they called me. And so I got to teach them again. And then they said, hey, do you want to tour around Europe with us and be our like private instructor? And at the time I had just opened my studio. So I was like, I actually can't, but I appreciated the offer. And I think that would have been a lot of fun. But I had to politely decline. So the new one I'm doing, which I'm so excited about, actually next month, I am doing Pilates on a walking safari in Kenya.
Oh my gosh.
And I am so excited. And as maybe many of us know, right, Africa doesn't have a lot of Pilates. So the fact that it's in a walking safari with reformers is so exciting. So
how did that happen? How did that come about?
Oddly enough, Facebook. Yeah. So there is one group.
What's a walking safari?
A walking safari. So I have never done any safaris, so this will be interesting. The itinerary is, you get up and they have these tents that you go to. So you walk, I think it's like 10 or 15 miles per day, and you go around with all the animals. And then you do Pilates in the morning and you have your tea and your breakfast with the animals. Then you go to the watering hole and you overlook Mount Kenya. And then you stop at the tented rooms, I guess. And then you keep going. Like the next day you do your Pilates, or you do it, by the tents, and then you go. And one day I think it's by the pool, and then you have the reformers. So I don't know if they take them with you or you have them the last day at the actual, like more hotel rather than the tents because of the animals. And you do get to go rock climbing if you want, so that's another option. And then they take you around and you're just walking everywhere to see these animals. So I'm like, okay, how close are we getting to some of them?
Oh my.
So she suggested maybe you try a safari before the walking one, just so you feel okay. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'll be okay. I'll walk. But I'm terribly excited because there's really not much in Africa. And I just thought, how cool is that experience? So one of the things, which I know we didn't discuss, but I decided to do anyway, because of this, is I want more people to be able to have the opportunity to do some travel and Pilates, because that's one of the things that I love. I was in the tourism industry, and as many can attest, like if you're around New York, I'll spit you all the facts about these weird things with just design and history. And I love that. And so we are going to launch this Global Pilates retreats that will showcase different places where people can, one, go and do retreats, but also instructors that they can go teach at these things. Because I think a lot of people don't know that that's available. So being able to have places to go, there's more and more popping up. There's been some in the UK. There's been one in Italy. There's a few in Italy, but more in Rome. I'm trying to think which other ones. I can't think off the top of my head, but there's more and more that are starting to pop up. And especially doing some cool adventures. Like one of my instructors, Davida, she's in Turks and Caicos. She's teaching.
Where is that?
And so I think in the Caribbean. So I think more and more people would love to be able to have the opportunity to do something like that. And when I've spoken with a lot of different instructors, they're like, okay, so my choices are I get certified and I'm a teacher or I'm a studio owner. And I'm like, and not everyone's cut out to own a studio. Half the time, sometimes I want to quit my job and you can't. And it's not that I don't love Pilates, but it's a job that has nothing to do with Pilates at that point. And I think there should be a lot more options for people to understand what they can do with Pilates. Because now this is one of the running pools that we've been working with is how many colleges and universities have Pilates? How many hospitals have Pilates wings already in them?
That's right.
What kind of instructor are you to be able to help filter? So like, it'd be nice to have a job board. You can go to Borneo and be an instructor. Now, my mom would always be like, you're a wild man of Borneo. It was like a phrase right back in the day. And now you can actually be a wild woman in Borneo or a wild man in Borneo, because there's Pilates instructors now. They have a studio and they're looking for people to teach. Like, that's just so cool to me. And I think more people really need to be able to have the opportunity to go and
carrying Joe's work all over the world as he wanted.
Yeah. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I would love to be able to bring that to more and more people, to know that they have other options. I mean, for me, it would be fantastic. I would love to just travel around the world and teach. And,
yes.
And knowing that you don't have to necessarily be part of a conference. You don't have to teach workshops. You can just teach and be and have more opportunity for that. And there's so much yoga, like just so much. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's time
to have
options.
There's room. Yes, there's room.
Yeah.
Adrianne, in the perfect world, how do you imagine the Global Pilates Organization's influence?
So ideally, I would love to see GPO standardized license Pilates. Would be amazing. That there's consequences to actions within the community if you cross any of those boundaries. I would like to see instructors feel like they have an organization that really supports them in their teaching, that provides resources for them of where to, have some continuing education, be able to look at even their locations and see what's available to them, not only with programs, but education if they can't afford it. Our nonprofit sector would be able to provide funding for that we could provide scholarships and be able to have Pilates accessible to more people. Because as it stands right now, for the most part, it's expensive. Being able to have, as we touched on, insurance, whether or not your medical insurance can cover it, to allow more people to have access to Pilates, to work with liability insurance, hopefully have some lower premiums, being able to work with studios on that and instructors. I would like to see research be funded. There is no research with the use of Pilates equipment, and we need that. We don't have that type of scientific base to back up the method, and I think it deserves that. So having a full team that continues to work on providing research for the community. And I would just like to see, this is totally ideal, but just really bringing everybody together and having that full sense of community. Now, I know that means different things to different people, but I think that our industry deserves and needs a full organization I know it's going to take time, obviously, because we can't do it all at once, but has different sectors to be able to assist with whatever is going through at the time. So, for example, when COVID happened, being able to have the resources, these are your financial options. Here are some loan options. Here are some of the grants that are, being given out to help you keep your studio in business. Here are the signs you need to put up here, just being able to make life a little bit easier for everybody. And also just having a lot of those resources and knowing that we're trying to put into the community and we want the community to put back into us too. It's really a working level of two-way street. And I clearly can't do that by myself. No individual can. It has to be everyone working together. So one of the big things I tell people is, whatever feedback you have of what you want to see with the community, tell me. Let's try to put some of these things into play. They might take some time. Or do you want to be ahead of it? Do you want to help launch it? That would be amazing. Let's start to do these things and put them into action. Even if they morph into something slightly different, that's still a beautiful thing. We have to start and try. And who better knows the community than people who are really in it? And it does take a lot of people to do things. We will need people in every different state, in every country, because people have different needs in different areas. And that's something that, hence the global, we need people around to say, okay, this is what we're having difficulty with, or this is what we'd like to see, or whatever instances happen. We all have to work together because we all share the same common thing of Joseph Pilates work. And that is the fundamental of that.
Just one quick question before we close.
Yeah.
Regarding apparatus companies, because many have come about in the last few years. So in terms of classical, there are a lot more companies available and offering equipment. Do you imagine that all the equipment owners would have some sort of synergy working together, or is it always going to be, this is the company I would recommend? Because I don't think there's a lot of friendships going on.
In terms of equipment companies, no, not too many friendships, I'd say, maybe in that regard.
That's part of the story too.
It's a little bit more of a complicated answer in the fact that in terms of mechanical, some of the companies are very different, and it's hard.
Would they all fall under this umbrella though?
In terms of being part of the organization, yes. I mean, we're not looking at manufacturing standards. That would be something different. This is more just our industry in terms of keeping it safe, because there are a lot of manufacturers now that are popping up from China that are really cheap and really dangerous equipment from the get-go. So in that sense, we would have, again, it comes down to education. So we could have a page that says, hey, we are endorsing these companies, but for these reasons. And this is what you're going to get out of this. Now, just because there's one, which I'm not going to name any names in terms of that, but it's not my preference, for example, right? Like, it was the first time I ever used it. I got down on the equipment and I thought, oh, this will be nice. Like, I'm excited. And it was so firm that I couldn't do rolling like a ball. Like, it hurt. But some people love it. And that is something that we need to differentiate, is that that's a personal preference. So that doesn't mean the equipment's bad, right? It just means that I didn't personally like it. But if you're looking at equipment in terms of a safety manufacturing standard in terms of that, then absolutely I can be like, okay, well, this is this and this is that. And then you make your own educated decision in terms of what you want. Because I will say, even some of the equipment I have takes a lot longer to service than necessary and is such a headache that if you're doing it on your own, you might hate that. And you might say, hey, I'd rather save the extra hours of my life and not do that and get a different piece of equipment. So I think that's tough, because a lot of it comes down to personal preference. But in terms of
safety,
I can definitely put that in there.
The perfect example is 2 safety chains on when you're doing tower. I can't tell you how many wall unit caddy setups only have 1 safety chain. Always be 2, because what happens if something were to happen with that 1 safety chain?
Which oddly enough has happened to me, because I warned the studio I worked at the time that the chain was open, the link was open, and they didn't fix it. The client caught the bar in time. You can always buy another safety chain and put it on there too.
But people don't know. People don't know.
They don't know. They don't even know that they're supposed to maintain their equipment either.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that. The one kind of pet peeve is some of the instructors who've been teaching a long time. I never maintain the equipment for years. The thing is, that's fine, but the grease will harden up and it does damage the equipment. Even though you never did it, it still does damage the equipment. So it does matter. You'll just have to replace the parts, and you're killing the wear and tear of your equipment. The other thing that's odd to me is always people ask the year. Well, when was the equipment made? It doesn't matter that much as people think. So when you're buying used equipment, it doesn't matter. Some of the stuff that's newer is actually kind of nice in a sense that who cares if the Gratz Reformer is from 2008 or 2013 or last year, because you still need to do maintenance on it anyway. And the thing that you really care about is if the frame is intact or if the upholstery is ripped. The rest of it, you could have a better maintained piece of equipment that's older or newer, depends on the person who's actually selling it. But again, I think a lot of people don't know what they need to do with their equipment for sure.
That's another category when you're selling.
That is.
When you're selling used apparatus.
Yeah. And definitely have met people who have gotten screwed over from buying, used stuff. So again, like I said before, my phone is always open. People will come to me, hey, what do you think about this? People have definitely done it. And I did, unfortunately, purchase equipment from another studio owner who I thought, he was like, oh, it's in the best condition. And I was like, okay, cool. But gave me photos of a piece that was in the studio, which is not the piece he gave me. And it was just, I had to replace everything, replace the spring. He didn't even give me reformer springs for one of them. And then was like, I have all this other equipment. Do you want to buy this? And I was like, I don't want to buy anything else from you because I don't know what you're selling me. So when other people were like, oh my God, this looks like a great deal. What do you think? I said, well, here's my experience. And that's not okay. Like, that's not cool. Like, if you don't have the springs, fine, just tell me. It should
that might need to be regulated then.
It might. I think that's going to be maybe a harder one to look at, but I think that at least you could have a list.
But there is no system. There is no system with that apparatus.
There is no system. I think you definitely have them labeled with different safety ones. I don't think you can say who's the best. I think there can definitely be more of an educational page to have people go to.
Agreed.
I might leave that for T to come up with some sort of standard in terms of that, because he would know a lot more. I mean, just the other day on going to LA and Las Vegas, he did serviced 47 reformers in 6 days.
Wow.
So that can give you the type of amount of reformers that he services per year. It's definitely, he's the person to talk to and to help figure out.
And T, for those of you listening, T is Adrianne's husband.
Yeah, so he's the person who would know it. And sometimes it's always a little pet peeve of mine when people like, I'll chime in maybe on Facebook and say, hey, that spring is just in this, or, be careful with this, just because I'm trying to, I want to be nice and I want people to be aware. Some people have fought with me. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. And so other people chime in, well, actually, she probably does. Like, she would probably know more. And, that's the part about being out again in the field, in the community. Like, he goes out and meets so many studio owners. He gets the feedback of what's going on. He gets the feedback of their equipment. We know kind of what's happening more and more. And I think that in and of itself has been a great connection, because you see certain patterns that happen, but you're also seeing more and more. And I don't think we discussed this. I sent it to one person, but that there's a reformer with a computer screen, like the Peloton attached to it. They make that now, that you can have it at the back edge. And so people are making this who don't know Pilates, where you're like, you can't do that because your head is there. Lord. You can't do, tendon stretch then, because it's where the foot bar is. Like, there's certain things that don't make sense, but they're creating that now. So you do have this full screen. You have just different morphs of types of reformers. So we could have more of an approved list, but if you're also doing something different that's not Pilates and you get, I don't know, a different type of quote unquote reformer, it's not Pilates. So maybe we wouldn't necessarily put it there. We could definitely do like a list of approved equipment companies. There are some more that are coming about. I just met a couple in Poland who are creating equipment, and I do like their equipment a lot. Like, it feels really nice. They're only doing a few pieces.
Based on whose designs? Based on?
I don't even know. They're only doing a few things. It's like mats and barrels, and they have the finger corrector, which I quite liked, that I don't think anybody else is
hand
making.
tensometer.
It's
oh yeah, Russell.
And Russell.
Soder is.
Russell's was too wide for my hand, and I actually ended up selling it. I couldn't use it. This one just feels like the perfect size for my hand. I don't know. They do the toe corrector and the push-up devices, and I really like their push-up devices. They feel very sleek.
You're such a wealth of information, and I'm quite sure there are people listening that would love to have a conversation with you. What is the best way?
So the easiest way in terms of getting information would be to email us, community@globalpilatesorganization.com. They're definitely looked at, and we have someone always monitoring them, or you can go to our website and go to the contact page. We are on Instagram. If you send us a message, it might take a little bit longer because there's a lot that go through.
Okay, so your website is?
Website is globalpilatesorganization.com. If you do go to Global Pilates Association.com, that will still be us, the nonprofit side. And so you can still find the organization that way. So they're both linked and together.
And same handles on Instagram?
Same handles on Instagram, although we primarily use Global Pilates Organization because that is the overall. What I did learn a lot going through is that organization, association, all of those are legally bound to different things. So while we also hold, we have the handle of institution, you cannot use institution until you are a higher education facility and requires more things from the state. So you actually can't get those names.
Okay.
So the association part is only for nonprofits, and we are an established 501c3.
Okay.
So those are the best ways to contact. You can always message us on Instagram too. We try to post. We need to do it a little more regularly. So if anybody does want to help with that, we'll take anyone who wants to help out with our IG page. So yeah, those are the best ways.
All right, Adrianne. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon again, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darian Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, aka Johnny. And we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. That way you let all of us know what you like about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps to cover all the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about how you can be part of our growing community, check out our show notes. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful people with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Calvin Coolidge.